Welcome again to each of you. I am Jan Aerie. I coordinate Older Adult Ministries in partnership with the National Benevolent Association. And with all of the many, many programs that the NBA does, we're so honored and pleased to be able to offer these kinds of webinars and are really thankful for the support as well as the tech effort that is put into it for us and with us, which is wonderful. So today we have a special hour to spend together, and I want to describe to you just briefly what to expect during that hour. First of all, we will do a brief, basic, factual, informational introduction, and then we will transfer into a conversation with a panel of four. I'm really excited for you to meet those four shortly and for them to share with you. They have been given some really provocative questions to respond in the panel time that they have. And I imagine that those questions are going to have some pretty profound responses on their part. So while you're listening to all of that, we hope that you will take note in your mind what you would like to bring to the breakout room session that comes just after the panel time. During that breakout room time, we'll have 10 minutes together with some prompting questions for you to think about. That'll be posted in the chat. But also, the facilitators of those rooms will be the panelists and a couple of others of us who are moderating. And so you'll be able to pose questions that way as well. Once we have those breakout rooms, we'll finish with a group conversation and then a closing, which includes a reminder that this is recorded, except not the breakout room session time. That is a private time. So you're welcome to put your video back on and your audio back on during that breakout room time. Or if you choose to have video off now, that's fine. We'd love to see your faces. So as we proceed, I want to also say one more thing, which is an email will be sent to all of you tomorrow, and that email will include a list of resources, many of which we will refer to today, but also some that you may hear about or read about in that list. We always welcome your feedback and your comments and your responses as well. Well, I'm chosen to tell you a little bit of some basics about ageism. It never hurts for us to try to put ourselves on the same page. So here are some things. First of all, we all are aging every moment of every day. There's an expert, Dr. Tracy Gendron, who has said, everything you know about aging is wrong, and it's not your fault. Well, that's a good start to the subject of ageism, because ageism is one of the last socially acceptable prejudices. It refers to the stereotypes of how we think, the prejudice about how we feel, and to the discrimination in how we act. That is the definition of ageism of all kinds. It's entangled, ageism is, with every other form of prejudice and discrimination, and it's deeply, deeply embedded, normalized even, and thriving, not just in our culture and society, but they say even in the world. And it's all but invisible at the same time. From the everyday language and media, the way that we see things portrayed, what we hear in the workplace, in healthcare, age-based stereotypes are everywhere, and yet they shape how we're each seen, how we're treated, and how we're valued. Well, why should we care? Well, Ageism has a host of negative effects for all people, for individuals, physically, mentally, well-being, and for the society as a whole. And if that were not enough to know, in short, it's bad for your health. Do you know that it's been scientifically proven that if you have a negative attitude about aging, about growing older, or if you tend to carry pessimism on your shoulders most of the time, you can shorten your lifespan by 7.5 years. That to me is enough reason to talk about ageism and to see how we can work our way to understanding it. So I am super grateful today to have my co-moderator, Bere, with us, and I turn it over to her to begin sharing. Welcome.
Thank you, Jan. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Bere Gil Soto. I serve as the Director of Young Adult Leadership Development at NBA. And when Jan reached out to me about this idea, I thought it was just a perfect way to collaborate and to work together with both of our programs, Older Adult Ministries and Young Adult Leadership Development. So I'm really excited and grateful to be here. And just in case you didn't know, just in case you just sign up for something and you're like, wait a minute, why am I here? Well, you're here because the goal of this event, the goal of this hour that we're going to spend together is for all of us to deepen awareness of ageism as a form of prejudice. We just heard Jan, and I don't know about you, but I want to recover any 7 years of my life that I may have lost already. So, and I don't want to keep losing anymore. So I'm here with you to raise awareness from one another and to realize that ageism impacts both, not only older adults, but also young people. And how is that? How does that play out in our congregations, in our ministries, in our society, and all of the days of our life when we go about, even at the store? We're here for all of us to learn, but especially as we learn from those experiences, to bring it down to our congregational settings and ministry settings. We hope that this is a meaningful dialogue that we all can engage. As you heard, Jan, we're going to go into small groups and breakout rooms. We really hope that this moment is a moment in which you can get not only to share, but also to receive. And for that, we're going to be hearing, as Jan said, from 4 fabulous people. We have today with us, one of the people we'll be hearing, and Jan and I, we're going to be alternating so none of you gets tired of hearing each other. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker very briefly. Her name is the Reverend Awit Marcelino. She is a pastor in Canada. So remember, our denomination is the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. And Awit is not only a congregational pastor, but she just recently accepted a call to serve as the young adult, youth and young adult director. Is that right? Of ministries? You can correct me when you go into your presentation. Jan, who else do we have with us today?
I'm really happy to introduce Barbara Borroto, and she will tell you a little bit about herself shortly after Awit shares.
We also have with us Reverend Angel Luis Rivera-Agosto, the director, the senior program coordinator for Justice Initiatives. And who else?
And Reverend Dr. Paul Koch is the regional minister in the Mid-America region. Those are our 4 panelists.
Well, I think that we're ready. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to hear from each and every one of them. So we will leave it to Awit to kick us off and to share about why this topic is important to you and anything else that you want to share with the group today on ageism awareness.
Good morning, good afternoon for some of you who are in Eastern time, like myself. My name is Awit Marcelino. I'm an ordained pastor serving a predominantly older and white disciples congregation in St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada. I also just accepted the National Youth and Young Adult Pastor position for the Canadian region, and I'm happy to be here to talk about ageism in all of our ministries. The first question is, as a young adult pastor in an aging congregation, what age-based assumptions have you run into about your leadership, credibility, or readiness? Okay, we're getting right into it. So I've been serving at this predominantly older congregation, white congregation for almost 5 years now. And I would say that in the beginning, people assumed because of my age, or because I look younger than my age, or because they can't see the white hairs at the back of my head. They assumed I did not have experience leading funerals, celebrations of life, or navigating pastoral care in tricky family dynamics. And in those beginning years, several people still contacted the previous minister. They also would turn mostly to my older co-pastor because of those assumptions about what I was capable of, what I was ready for, what I could navigate. And so for the beginning years, there would be times where I would have a phone call at the church office, and it would be the funeral chapel telling me that we would have this service. I knew that someone had passed in our congregation or a family member of someone had passed, but they would inform me that it would be held on this day at the church, that I was not officiating. And what I would have appreciated was if the family had talked to me, or if the previous pastor who had served the congregation had talked to me. And so there were a lot of assumptions without clear communication. And I think a lot of it was based on age. Um, what helped you respond without getting defensive or shutting down? This is important because we are human. We are pastors, but we're human and we feel things. I think slowly and over time, I was able to not take things as personally because I could also admit that I was new, I was serving this congregation, and I was just getting to know them. And at the same time, they're also getting to know me. And so we hadn't yet built those relationships. And so I can acknowledge and recognize that they had these long-standing, beautiful, rich, close relationships with their previous pastor. And because I had an older co-pastor who had served in disciples' churches in that area, they had done shared ministry together with this other pastor who they had done shared VBSs, they had done outreach together. And so I can acknowledge that it maybe wasn't about me. I didn't need to take it personally, but they didn't know me. And so there was this deeper need of how do we get to know each other? What did you learn about their story and their hopes in the process? And so I would say that as a new, younger pastor coming into this congregation, I felt intimidated because there's a lot of pre-existing relationships, both with other clergy and with one another. I felt intimidated because I was new, and also personally, I'm introverted, and so I'm kind of battling those things. But I also learned that some of them have might have felt intimidated or wary or shy about getting to know someone new, someone who's younger, someone who's of a different generation, and also someone of a different ethnic culture. So I'm learning these things. And so, again, there's that need to just how do we get to know each other? As I got to meet and sit down one on one with folks over coffee and tea, at Bible studies, or through visits at home, I learned more about the history of the congregation itself. And in this congregation, we had two disciples' churches from the same town. One was more working class, the other included more professionals and academics. And so, what I didn't know was I was walking into something that there had already been these undercurrents of division, and maybe some hurts and animosity, even though it had been 30 years that they had come together as one congregation. So I've been learning about these undercurrents, and because they had come together, they came together based on survival and fear, the fear of getting so small that their church was dying, that they had to reach out to this other disciples' church and come together in order to survive. So I was learning about those fears, those really deep fears. But underneath all of those deep fears, there were these hopes for a deeper relationship. There were hopes for healing, for more fellowship and fun and friendship, not just between congregants of these two distinct churches, but also with their pastors. And so I would say that we're on this journey together. We're fostering those deeper relationships. We're healing through shared meals, through fellowship, and through friendship in our church. I'm just gonna pop a question. Do I go to naming kind of what's underneath that
If
and
you
keep
choose, that would be fine.
Sure. Okay. Um, so the question kind of underneath all of this is where do you see ageism quietly shaping congregational life, decision making, worship style, conflict, budgets, whose voice gets centered? One of those kind of underneath currents is who gets labeled the future, who gets labeled the past, and what does that do to belonging in a shared community? I'll share that a couple of years ago, we had a new board. There were about three people in their 40s, and I would say these were the three people in their 40s who were in our church. And they were serving on the board, which was amazing. And then the other three people were in their 60s and 70s. And so we were navigating these new roles in the board, but also within our church. We were thinking about half-time pastoral ministry, and if you only have one staff person in their half-time, we needed more leadership from our congregants and from our board. We had a difficult board meeting where one of the younger board members said, "Well, those of us who are young, we have jobs, and so all these things that need to get done, the retirees have to take care of it."
Mhm.
So that was not taken lightly. That caused a lot of hurt. And I talked with folks both individually and in kind of small groups. They said, "We've been working at the church, we've been serving and leading, and we're still doing it. What we want is to do this together." And so it took some one-on-one conversations. It took some hard conversations at those next couple of board meetings to really talk about we each have our gifts and skills, regardless of age, and how we all have to come together if we're going to pull through. And so, from that first comment, there was definitely a feeling that the younger folks were leading the discussion, making the decisions. They were the future. And the young families that we were hoping to bring in, that was the future, and the older folks were the past, and they had to kind of suck it up and do the work. And so we really had to heal from those kind of not just someone saying it, but someone even thinking it. And so we had a lot of conversations about that. Um, where do you see mutual gifts that get missed because of stereotypes? So I think we miss a lot. And I'm standing now in a position where I'm serving an older congregation in my local church, but now I'm taking on this national youth young adult pastor position for the whole Canadian region. And I think if we stereotype based on age, we're missing out on all the gifts, all the skills, the wisdom that come from young people and older folks. We miss the people who have love and energy for different ministries in the church that we might not necessarily expect them to want to do or to lead in. We dismiss those who are willing to serve in new ways. And I'll just briefly share that as a young pastor, especially, when I said I wanted to go to seminary, they're like, "Oh, so then you should be a camp counselor. And then in a few years, you got to direct that camp." The only thing is, I am not a camper. I don't like camping. Uh, I don't love bugs. I don't love the giant spiders in our cabins. Um, so that is not something I enjoy doing in my personal life, and yet I've been asked to support and to lead so many youth camps, and it's not my passion. And so if I'm thinking about myself, how many people have we pigeonholed because of their age, and beyond that, maybe because of their gender, that we've said you belong here and you don't belong here. So I think that all of our ministries are impacted when we're not listening, when we're not curious, when we're not encouraging people to be and to serve where they are feeling called to serve. When we put people in boxes they're not meant to be in, when we missing the diversity of the body of Christ within our people. And so I think that we miss a lot and we miss being the church that God is calling us to be when we have these stereotypes for older folks and young folks and everyone in between. Thank you.
Thank you, Awit. That was wonderful. I'm so appreciative. And I'm really looking forward now also to hearing from Barbara, who as the same, has a very wide range of experience and much to share. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everyone. Awit, that was beautifully said, although my questions are a little bit different. They go hand in hand with your answers. So I'll start off with introducing myself. I'm a psychosocial rehabilitation and mental health coach therapist, which basically means I teach social skills and coping strategies to people struggling with depression and anxiety, and just anyone in between that needs an extra set of eyes and a different approach to their circumstances. I also serve in a multi-generational church in Miami, Florida. I'm in the youth and young adults ministry, as well as the worship and the women's ministry. And the first question I'd like to answer for you today is, from your mental health work with older adults, what are the emotional or relational impacts you've seen when people are treated less capable or past their prime? So a little bit of a backstory. I've been working with older adults, mostly 65 and older, already retired, living sometimes at home with their grandkids or even with their families. Some are living on their own since about 2018. I was maybe 28 at the time. So I was definitely not seen as their coach. I was definitely not seen as a mental health professional. I was treated as their granddaughter, as part of the family. So getting through my clients was very difficult at the time. They just were not listening simply because I was younger than them. You can say at the time I was treated as less capable because of my age and the age differences with them. So I felt like I had to prove myself daily so they could recognize me as someone capable in the field and someone who ultimately wanted to help. Once we got past that, I realized a lot of my clients were missing simple connection, just conversation with someone who was just willing to hear them out. Because of this, they struggled with depression and loneliness. So I came to the realization that when we see others as less capable because of their age, doesn't matter young or old, or simply saying things are different now, so you wouldn't understand, or things were different back then, they're very different today, we undervalue their experiences and rob them from human connection by not listening to their words, by not listening to what they bring to the table. It doesn't matter if we agree on the subject or not. So the follow-up to that is, what does that do to someone's sense of agency, worth, and belonging? And if you've been in this situation before, you could probably answer this question for yourself. So by doing this as human beings, we retrieve, we become quiet, shy, we isolate ourselves. We forget how to speak up and give ourselves value because we're just not being noticed in that room. We're simply not being seen by those around us, and most importantly, by those we love. Sometimes our family members, people from the church we've known 20, 30, 40 years. It hurts. It makes us feel like we're not enough anymore. It makes us feel like our opinion doesn't matter. So the message we receive is, my experiences don't matter, or they're not important, or they support anything in today's society, so I'm no longer needed. How does this affect how willing people are to ask for help or accept it? So my clients, if I say all of them, I probably wouldn't be incorrect. All of them struggled with asking for help. And I could see why, right? If they're not being heard in their family group or, by anyone around them, I can understand why it was very difficult. So, the same older adults don't ask for help or even know how to receive it for the simple fact that they no longer feel connected to anyone. They cannot see how their input has value to anyone. That's very sad. I also oversee youth ministry. So where do you see age-based assumptions shaping how adults view youth and how youth view older adults? This is a really kind of an interesting question because it kind of hits home a little bit. I have a 15-year-old and my mother lives with us who is 80. So there's a huge age gap there. And a lot of things my 15-year-old doesn't understand. And a lot of things my 80-year-old doesn't, my mom who's 80 doesn't understand. And I'm in between, I'm 36. So we all have different points of view, probably on the same subject. So unfortunately, a lot of youth today, whether in our church or outside of our churches, are identified as shy or quiet or simply uninspired to step outside of their comfort zone, which for most of them is their phone or video games or social media or anything media related. This, unfortunately, has shaped older adults to stop trying to reach out, to simply stop talking to our youth. And I believe it's because they don't know how to connect, ironically, with such a technological generation. Things are far too advanced for the older adults, right? These are the things I hear in our groups. Things are too advanced for the older adults in the new generation. And a lot of times our youth just crave connection from a real life person who's willing to listen. So it goes on both ends. It's not just our older adults needing connection, our youth need connection too. They crave that, they want that. And when you give them the opportunity, they actually do open up and talk a lot. So what's a small practice you recommend to help people stay human with each other across age? I think that's how we stay human, right? We need to connect, be on our phones. And this goes for all generations. I think a lot of older people today too are very in tune with their phones. They are on Facebook all day, or they're scrolling through different types of DIY projects on social media. And before they know it, it's been an hour and they haven't had any human connection because all they've done is scroll on videos all day. So it's very easy to get sucked into that lonely world that seems productive, that seems like it's doing something for our mental health, when in reality, the only thing we need to have better mental health is connection with another live human being. So we need to be open to listening, to understand and not give a quick response. And to understand as well that everyone has a different valid point of view. This is something I said often with my clients when they didn't want to share because of, just being afraid of being judged. I said, your opinion is valid in this room, whether we agree or not. So don't be afraid to share your thoughts, but keep patience and love and understanding in your tone so others don't take offense. In a congregation, if a congregation wanted to begin understanding ageism this month, what is one simple healthy step they can take? This I leave with you as I'm ending. It's simple, but it may take some practice. And this goes for all generations. Learn to listen and not assume. Proceed with love and the desire to understand one another. And don't brush off ideas just because you don't understand how to execute them. Allow others the opportunity to be heard and teach you something. If we are here today, and if you are here today, no matter our age, it's because we have yet to learn something, and it may not come from the most expected place. So just stay open. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. That was so insightful, and I love how you said keep kindness and proceed with kindness and love. And I think that a lot of the times we forget about those basic things. So thanks for the reminder. And now let's continue to hear from a different perspective. We've heard from a pastor, we've heard from someone working both with young adults and youth at the church and with older adults in her professional life. Now let's talk with, we want to hear from Reverend Angel Luis Rivera-Agosto, who has been a pastor and advocate and right now serves as the Director of Justice Ministries, the program coordinator, and has also a personal story to share with us. So, Angel.
Thank you, Bere. Blessings to you all. It's a privilege to be here. And I want to begin by naming where I stand, not just as a panelist, but as a person living inside these questions every single day. I am part of what many call the sandwich generation. I have raised young women at home, and I am now a caregiver for my mother who lives with dementia. I also serve with the National Benevolence Association working on justice initiatives and community building. So when we talk about ageism and vulnerability, this is not a theory for me. Today is Wednesday morning. On next Monday, I will be taking my mother to her next medical appointment, and she will be repeating to me for 1,000 times, where are we going and why do I need to go there? It is my daughters having 5 different conversations at the same time through Instagram, text messages, and watching a movie all at the same time. It is seeing my daughters talking to her abuela, but being aware that maybe she doesn't even remember their name. And I want to say this clearly. Ageism does not only harm older adults, it harms young people too. And it harms everyone in between trying to hold families together. So the question is, how does ageism increase vulnerability for neglect, isolation, financial exploitation, or even being dismissed? Ageism is not just a personal bias, it is a system. And from a decolonial point of view, justice and justice-based lens, it devalues wisdom that doesn't come from dominant culture. It prioritized productivity over dignity. It normalized control over accompaniment. And here is what that looks like. When my mother tries to express discomfort, people could talk over her or don't believe her. That is ageism. And it means harm can go unrecognized. When people reacted with astonishment and criticism when my daughters decided not to be baptized along with the rest of the youth people at church, that can be ageism. Their particular reasons for their decision weren't considered the way it should be. So as caregivers, we stretch thin. Elders slowly disappear from community life, and we call that normal. It is not normal. It is a failure of community. Youth could feel not heard or understood and tend to look for isolation. Or talking about finances. When we assume dependence, other steps in to manage. Sometimes that becomes control and sometimes harm. Or when we stop asking older adults for wisdom, prayer, or leadership, we are telling them their story is over. This is spiritual violence. Now, this also affects young people. Young people are told, you're too old, too young to understand. You're not ready to lead. Ageism creates a narrow definition of whose voice matters. Too old, then you're dismissed. Too young, then you're silenced. Both are injustice. Both exclude people from the body of Christ. So some red flags for ministry leaders. If you see sudden withdrawal from community for both older adults and youth people, you need to be very much aware of that. Or maybe a caregiver always speaking for the person. That is another flag that we need to be very much aware. Fear or hesitation in responses, specifically with older adults, that can be a red flag for us ministers. New or unexplained financial stress, that can also be a red flag for us in ministry. And over spiritualizing suffering, this is just their cross to bear. Careful with that kind of phrases, as you could be creating more harm than good when you are talking like that. And these red flags are often relational before they could be clinical. So be aware of these kind of signals. Let me make this real. My mother has dementia, as I already told you. There are things she cannot do safely anymore, but there is still so much that she can do. Young kids may lack from experience, But that can also be so helpful as sometimes our own experiences deform our hope and the look for possibilities. So, in the case of my mother, she can choose what she eats, or maybe, and she has the right to express discomfort. Or maybe my mother could be holding my daughter's hand and sing songs she learned decades ago because her long-term memory is still there. And my daughters to singing her back their music and both enjoying and laughing hard amid moments that will be printed in family cherished memories. So in that sense, let's dance at every place we are, intergenerationally speaking, and affirm love. Helping means walking beside them, asking what matters to you today, honoring their dignity and voice. But then overriding could mean deciding for them because it's faster or easier, acting out of fear and exhaustion. And let me tell you, as a caregiver, you can feel exhausted and you need to resist being exhausted and taking decisions as you could be exhausted. Count to 10, look for, walk far away and then return so you can deal with your own exhaustion. And I'll be honest, because I've done that too. But here's the truth. Care without consent can become control even when it is well intended. So from a decolonial perspective, control has often been justified as help. So resisting that even in our families is justice work. In the church, what can ministries do that is both compassionate and responsible? Churches are not just service providers. We are moral communities. We are called to practice care that is compassionate in relationships, accountable in structures too. 5 concrete steps. Shift from charity to justice. Ask not just how we help, but what conditions create harm. Second, build consent-centered practices. Speak to people, not just about them. Ask, do you want support? Who do you trust? Third, whole family complexity. Love and harm can coexist and listen across age and cultural differences. Number 4, create safety pathways, clear reporting processes, partnership with professionals, training for clergy on these issues. And number 5, center dignity and belonging. Include both older adults and young people in leadership and decision making because safety without dignity is not care, but dignity without safety is not justice. A practical takeaway. If I could leave you with one sentence and one step, I could say from the one sentence, the first act of care is to listen, and the first act of justice is to believe. And one step, have a private, respectful conversation. How are you really doing? And is there anything that doesn't feel safe or right? Then listen, don't interrupt, don't rush to fix, ask permission before involving others, because you don't have to solve everything, but you do have to refuse to look away. So, in conclusion, I care for my mother every day, and I learn from my children every day. And what I know is this: God's justice lives in small, faithful moments. When we choose to see someone, to believe them, and to talk beside them, that is the work that needs to be done. So, a final question for reflection: how does dignity and justice can shape, heal, and bless intergenerational relations within church and society? Thank you very much, and blessings to you all.
Thank you so much, Angel Luis. We are filled with wonderful information by our 3 panelists, and I know if you like to take notes, you may have been writing quickly. Fortunately, we're recording as well. So we're so grateful, and we look forward to Paul, who is our final panelist, and Paul will introduce himself. Paul, I just want to say you have your allocated time. And you go right ahead and share what you'd like to say.
All right. I've just been marveling at the threads between all of my three predecessors that we have not coordinated, but we're all speaking truth out of our own experience, and that's where truth lies on how we see things and what unfolds in our life. So thank you to all that we've heard, and I've been asked to speak from my perspective as a regional minister and what I observe in congregations as I work with them, particularly regarding issues of ageism, and also my learnings from being a part of the Silver Chalice ministry team. And then lastly, perhaps more important, as being a caregiver myself. And so there's some overlapping threads as my wife and I made the decision to sell our home and move in to visit with my parents, or to live with my parents as they were aging and my mom was dying. And Dad quickly uh, held on until his wife passed, and then went downhill through dementia and also physical abilities. So one thing that I appreciated is that we had help among our family, but among my wife and me was to uh, understand the boundaries of honoring our commitment to take care of them in their home as long as possible, but knowing when it was no longer safe for them to remain at home and to make the hard decision. First, to take away the keys, which thankfully wasn't an issue after the police had to get involved. But uh, knowing that it was time, yeah, that he would not prosper, that he was alone, and then as he was falling, it was dangerous. So we investigated care facilities, and my advice is don't be judged by how nice, or don't judge a facility by how nice it looks. A lot of them are very extravagant, cost lots of money. So we make assumptions in our economy that, oh, this must be the better place. Dad lives in a county facility that's older and has a large number of Medicaid patients, being a county-run facility. And I'm sure the workers make minimum wage, as you look through there, but the care is the best that I could ever imagine. And I hear that from the community. Says if you want top care, go to this facility, and that is proven true. And so as I think of churches, some of our churches are older facilities, right? We may not have, all the expensive gizmos and that we seem will attract people. And we have some older folks helping, working around, and that's not at all how we should judge ourselves. So if your facilities and your kind of situation applies to you, know that you are much more than that. It's the love and the care, and so be proud when you know that your congregation is loving and caring and has a ample ministry to take care of all people, regardless of their situation. And as I work with congregations, I realize it's been expressed before that just latent ageism and believing of one's abilities or not believing of one's abilities adds to the ethos and the culture of what the congregation is and who is to be. And it especially manifests during search and call. Is your pastor is moving on and retiring. If there's that underlying culture of racism, you're going to hear people say, "Oh, we need to get a young minister," and we need someone who really will focuses on the youth, even though perhaps a youth you don't have any young members or anyone under 65, perhaps, or grandchildren or any potential. But they say, "Oh, we're going to die. Let's get a younger pastor." There are many fabulous younger pastors, but as we are learning from our thriving congregation partners, to thrive means that you are living up to what you are possibly able to do, and your own heritage and your own mission and ministry. And there's no other evaluation that's necessary. Just be the best that you can be. And limiting your search, if you're in search and call, to only younger people or 40 or under or whatever your parameters are, not only are you perhaps making a tactical mistake of being able to minister to older adults, but you are neglecting the wisdom that we older adults have. I say we, getting closer. I do have my AARP card, but we have a category of servants within the church called elders, but do we also, in their responsibilities of the church, honor their time-held wisdom, all those gray hairs that have been earned through there? And as these older adults can no longer function at the task they have done for years and years, or it's troubling, or, we heard some ageism, uh, disagreements between younger people and older adults. As we were discussing in our Silver Chalice cohort meeting last week, um, find ways to honor that wisdom because that is needed, that institutional memory, that perspective of many decades in the church offers. And consider how can we honor all those who have served remarkably. There's emeritus statuses, but there's more we can do in ritual. And maybe consider reassigning them as being providers of institutional memory to always be there to understand, who we are as a neighborhood, what is in our community, and find ways of honoring that. Do not task those who are being cared for if they're at home, and that goes along with the caregivers too, which are often older adults ourselves. We realize you're time limited, but how can we honor you and to continue receiving all the gifts that you want to offer? And so I know there's a lot more undercurrents. I could speak to all of those, but uh, I think I've said enough, and I want to hear what you have to say in the groups.
Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you, everyone. We are really excited to next invite you to have some dialogue in a breakout room session. We will be helping to facilitate those by following some of the questions that will be offered in the chat. So you can see what those are if you choose. Your facilitator will help guide you through that. But it's also a time to offer a little bit of feedback and to offer some other suggestions you may have. We're going to make our breakout room time be about 8 minutes long so that we have time to regroup just briefly before we get to the top of our hour. So we will now go into those rooms and we'll see you in about 8 minutes.
Thank you all for joining us for this webinar, for this panel, for this intergenerational conversation. There were so many good things that came up in our small group, and I'm sure, and I hope, that's my prayer, but I'm sure that in your own small groups as well, there was a lot of energy and good stuff. So we're just so grateful for each one of you for joining this effort. We hope that the conversation and whatever things that were sparked today, they don't stay here, but that they keep you moving, right? A lot of the times I used to pray at church and say to people when we would pray, a lot of the times we pray for the Spirit to move around us, but a lot of the times we also should be praying for the Spirit to move us, and so that we can move around. And so I hope that whatever the Spirit is asking you and me to do today, that we can be moved by it and through it to do and respond so that we can bridge the gap and we can continue spreading and doing the gospel as we've been called to. Jan, I'll pass it back to you to give us any housekeeping and anything else, concluding topics.
Yes, and thank you so much. Thank you again to our panel, but to all of you participants and all you've shared. Watch for an email tomorrow, and please do follow up with us. Your feedback is really important. I want to close with one statement. If we disrupt ageism within ourselves, we can help others to do the same. And one of the best ways to do that is to have conversation. There is hope in communicating together and sharing as we have today. We send you all our blessings. We look forward to seeing you again. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, ageism is something we can overcome. Take care. Bye-bye.